Hello, my friend, and what a magnificent conversation we're having today. Because I perceive that by the end of this video, you'll have a deeper and more clear understanding of why you do not actually have to care about other people's perspectives about you, which in turn will free you up even more so that you can focus on your most satisfying experience of life while still being able to meaningfully and deeply connect with others. Because from my perspective, not caring about what others think about you is very different than not caring for and loving with others. I'm Danielle Lynn. I am a reality creation navigator and someone who talks to empowered beings such as yourself on topics such as living a satisfying life, being a deliberate creator of your reality, and most importantly, living as your truest version of self, which hence the name True Self Alchemy. It's a joy and an honor to have these conversations with you. If you found this video, as I mentioned, I don't believe it's a coincidence, so to speak. In fact, it is one of my perspectives that as we are more deliberately creating in this reality, we consciously and sometimes unconsciously magnetize to ourselves the messages, the people, the communities, the teachers, and the resources that assist us in connecting more clearly, more enjoyably, and more deliberately with the life we most want to live. And for myself, this channel and this conversation represents one such path. When you're going through the experience of life as a child, we are put in a situation in which others care for you. And so on a certain level, we have a deep reliance on our caregivers, on our family. And we are put in a situation of reliance on others during formative years of our lives. For some of us, this can be, have been an experience of love. For others of us, this could have been an experience of deep pain or deep suffering. And all of us have probably experienced something in between all of those things. It's no wonder that so much of our childhood can shape what we perceive to be possible or not possible in our current reality. It's sort of like the elephant. You might have heard of the stories, like when a young elephant's growing up, they tie the elephant's foot to a chain. Like this is in experiences where they enslave the elephant. They'll tie the elephant's foot to a chain, and it believes and perceives no matter how hard it pulls, it can't break free. But then by the time it's an adult and it could break free, it doesn't try because it has been imprinted with this idea that, when it was younger, it tried and tried and tried and could not. So even though it has the actual strength to break free now, it has been conditioned to not. And in a lot of ways, there's a lot of elements that may seem parallel for us as humans when it comes to responsiveness with others, the behaviors we have with others, and what we think we need to do in order to meet our own needs in reality. When you were younger, it's possible that perhaps there were certain behaviors or certain ways you felt you needed to appeal to your caregivers in order to get your needs met. And if that's a way you were brought up and you believed, when you're an adult, you may act in that way with others because this is the way you have known to get your needs met. So consciously or unconsciously, you may continue those patterns into adulthood. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of people, whether it's psychologists or their channels or teachers, will talk to you about things like shadow work or working with the inner child or all these things, because what we're really doing is we are coming back into the repeated stories we tell ourselves. In order for a belief to be present right now, somewhere in your conscious or unconscious, it is being played on repeat because the patterns that we live right now are the ones that we keep perpetuating into the present moment. We shift belief systems and structures by repeating new patterns or dropping the patterns you have. I mean, there is more than one way to navigate a reality. Let's just say the majority of people I've experienced will rewrite a pattern by adopting, let's say, a new belief. And this is usually done through habitual means. And so one of the ways that we shift these perspectives is through things like affirmation, like mantra, like guided meditation and practices, some of the things that we talk about on this channel. And in order to go deep with it, one of the ways we also approach that is by going beyond just the conscious mind and working with both the subconscious mind and the higher conscious self. And my own experience of reality navigation comes from having a harmonic interface across all your aspects of self. It's not about, because you probably experienced this before. If you've ever just tried to navigate something with only your thinking mind, you're like, well, I should do this, or I think this, or like, if it was just about the mind, then everyone could simply think, oh yeah, new car, go. Oh yeah, this job, go. Oh yeah, this cool person, go. But as you might notice, for a lot of people, they might think that and then maybe experience something different in their reality, or it doesn't show up right away, or doesn't do this or that. And so this is what usually drives the search for people to try and understand, well, why not? Oh, it's because, I haven't been doing it consistently for this much time, or it's because of this, or it's because of that. And I would say the experience, the most simple explanation, if you want to call it that, the most simple, let's say, perspective that we could perhaps apply across a lot of this simply boils down to us attempting to navigate reality with only pieces of ourself and attempting to drag the others along for the ride. And now we're at a place where we can be more deliberate and conscientious and connect with and interface with the totality of ourself, the true self, the natural self, which doesn't mean we need to attempt to control every aspect. It's not about being a micromanager. It's simply about being so willing to be present and honest with yourself. And any of the, let's say, outdated belief structures and neuroses that we have sometimes hidden because it felt too painful to face them, and instead being willing to just see what we're working with, just to see, which is why the whole, we don't need to blame or judge anything is so important, because a lot of us choose not to see subconsciously because we're afraid of what we might see. A lot of us have the judgments that we project outside of ourselves can often, point to, can often be an indicator of fear we may have internally of, well, what if we find that in ourselves? Because a judgment with a negative energetic spin on it is a rejection or a separation. And when it's other, when it's out there, it's not so painful because, here's you not being that. And then you can be like, oh, but not that. Yet if we find it in ourselves suddenly, then we deal with rejecting consciously or unconsciously an inner part of ourselves, which can be a very painful experience. And, the next steps are either to just be in that pain, or then to explore new perspectives or new ways of looking at that judgment. And so coming back to the other and what this has to do with the other is understanding that on some level, any judgment or perspective or rule that someone around you shares with you about you has more to do with what they believe, what they have agreed upon within themselves about how reality works or how they believe reality works. When a person's telling you what they think you should do or what they believe is right and what you're doing is wrong, what they're sharing with you is they're sharing with you the structure and the belief systems and agreements they have within themselves about reality. It has very little, and perhaps from their perspective, nothing to do with you. Now, what it does share is they are telling you the rules upon which they're interfacing with reality. And at that point, you have a option and opportunity to decide how much of that resonates with you and how much of it doesn't resonate with you. Because depending on that, you might decide, oh yeah, I'm all about that. Let's jam on that together. Or you might be like, well, this stuff I'm into, but not so much this stuff. And what happens is the person projecting this on some level may truly believe that, because when they may fear not having another person's support, or they may truly just believe or perceive that other people need to have the same beliefs as them, and if they don't, then that's an attack on their reality. And for some people, their beliefs are who they are, so they perceive a rejection of the beliefs as a rejection of self, which feels like death. So they feel like they're being attacked. So I'm sharing all this. This is a lot of information, I'm aware. But I'm sharing all this because now we can come back to a root of understanding. Like, we're going to clear a little bit of this away. We're coming back to a root of understanding that when you're interfacing with people at a high emotional level, people are generally just sharing with you what their beliefs are, what their attachments are, what their patterns are, what their neuroses are. Make sense? I am saying generally, especially when people have heightened emotions. And this doesn't have to be a negative emotion, even very positive, intense emotions, like all these things are stories. So I'm not suggesting having a judgment on stories, or even that you need to go through life as a stoic. I understand that that is a pathway. My experience is all of life is a choice of flavor. The most enjoyable patterns of life that I have experienced have been allowing myself to really dance in the field of life, to like really just get all juicy in there with all the joys and the challenges, while also not allowing, let's just say not choosing to get fully caught up in the story. It's like enjoying cosplaying, but remembering that you're cosplaying, not completely forgetting that you're, we're essentially in a big LARP, if you know what that is, live action role play. So if you choose to remember that, you can really get engaged and have a lot of fun with it without fully losing yourself in the role. And that can be helpful, especially if you find yourself in a place where you're not enjoying your phase in the role as much, because you can be like, oh, I can shift this a bit. Or if people are behaving a certain way towards you, you don't need to take it all on board. You can really just understand that, again, these are just reflections people are sharing with you. Now, you can also receive context of those, shares that people give you. I've explained before in one of my mirroring videos how you can receive and understand, through the types of people and interactions that you are consistently seeing in your life. This also shows you on some level what you're saying yes to, what patterns you're saying yes to, because if you consistently find yourself around certain kinds of people or situations, then you can take a look at your pattern choices and rhythms, and you can shift them, because on some level you might say yes and yes and yes to situations and people that keep acting a certain way. And this is not a judgment towards you. It's not a judgment about who you are. It's just as you navigate this and as you explore this without judging yourself for being there and without judging the other people for being who they are, you can just go, oh, I found myself here. Very interesting. What would I like to focus on more now? And this right here is where you can apply something, a philosophy called detachment. Because instead of taking it super personally, instead of even saying, well, this other person should or needs to act another way, you can simply understand that they're acting in the way that they know how. And the most powerful way that you can shift your situation is by focusing on yourself and your own energy and how you want to engage in that situation. There, without needing to or wanting to change how other people are, a lot of times by changing my focus or my behavior or what I'm doing, other people around me change. Now, sometimes they don't, but I share that because whether or not people change with you, if you really do want to offer avenues to those around you to have the most uplifting experiences, then for myself, the most powerful ways I have been able to assist with that is through embodying that change myself, not telling people what they should be, how they should act or whatever, because that's none of my business. That's not any of my business. They may have something going on in their whole life story, in their true self story that I have no business telling them what to do or what not to do. It's about how attuned you are to your own inner guidance system, right? So whether or not they're conscious or unconscious, unless they specifically came to me and engaged with me for my alchemy work and my services, and they're just living their life, then that's their business. So in the same way, through this video, we just discussed a little bit. So we went to some pretty deep topics today. That's what I'll share. We went pretty deep today. But clearly, this is the kind of topic that you can take on board, that you can understand on some level. And I offer this to you as an exploration, as an inner exploration, to also consider that it's not about being better than or wiser than anyone else, because even that sort of maybe misses the point when we look at it that way. It's really just about being so committed to your path and yourself, you realize that people who are ready to also be that as well are going to see that, notice what you're doing, and be like, oh yeah, of course, duh, that's what I can do as well. And people who weren't going to do that anyway. So it's like you didn't need to even focus your time or energy towards trying to convince anyone of anything. And in this way, naturally being yourself without pushing anyone else, without worrying about what anyone else is doing, you shift the world being you. Brilliant. So I hope today's video has been of some assistance, inspiration to you, you magnificent creature, you. And if you have any thoughts, I would love to always hear them in the comments and carry on our conversations there. I find them to be highly synchronistic, and so many of us here, you share, in my perspective, you have deep wisdom, and if you feel inspired to share, please do, because all of us, including myself, can learn from many of the wisdoms that each of us contribute to the whole of this. And every single time I make one of these videos, I can feel myself as well more clearly resonate into who I am. And so I thank you for co-creating this with me as we both choose to really resonate in that way. It's amazing and empowering, and I personally am deeply grateful for it. And so with that, this has been of service. Please do like, share, and subscribe. I look forward to creating more of these conversations. Please check out anything you like in the descriptions, and I look forward to connecting again soon.